Kids with autism, whether they start talking when they're 2 or 4 or 8, often have really problematic articulation that don't always follow the typically developing rules. Their articulation can be really difficult to understand. So today I'm going to discuss articulation issues and what my system is to help kids talk more clearly. Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Barbera from marybarbera.com. Each week I provide parents and professionals just like you with some of my ideas about turning autism around. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I hope you'll do that now. A few months ago, I also started a weekly Turn Autism Around podcast, so you can check that out at marybarbera.com/podcast too, or just search Turn Autism Around on iTunes. I have several podcast episodes about language. You may want to check those out. So before we get started with today's topic of articulation, I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm not a speech pathologist. I am a behavior analyst and the author of the Verbal Behavior Approach. And I have worked collaboratively with lots of speech pathologists over the past 2 decades, first with my son and then with many of my clients, to help me to understand articulation better. But I'm certainly not an expert. But I do want to give you some tips about things that you can do just to help kids speak more clearly and how to collaborate for kids with really troublesome articulation. Many young children, when they first learn to talk, have poor articulation. Their words are not clear and they may have trouble saying certain consonants like R's or F's or blends, especially such as sh or bl. So words with consonants and blends may be really hard for parents to understand. This is completely normal for typically developing kids to have certain consonants and blends come in later. Now, in chapter 6 of my book, The Verbal Behavior Approach, I have a whole chapter on non-vocal to vocal, getting kids from not talking to talking. And in chapter 6, I briefly address articulation issues that I faced with my son Lucas and with other kids early in my career. And in 2003, I've talked about this before in my video blogs and my podcasts, I started my first position as a behavior analyst with the Pennsylvania Verbal Behavior Project. And I was in classrooms, multiple classrooms, working eventually with hundreds of kids, consulting with their teachers and their team to help them improve. And I remember back in one of my first classroom visits, that first year in 2003, I was working with a particular teacher. I can still picture this child. I don't remember his name, and even if I did, I wouldn't be able to disclose it, but let's just call him Ron, for instance. Okay, so Ron was an 8-year-old who had some vocal language, and he was going through mixed VB sessions, if you will. So the teacher was saying, touch the banana. She was holding up, a cup and saying, what's this called? And she was doing mixed VB. She might be doing imitation, touch your head, touch your body parts. And I was observing her teaching session. And what I found with Ron, as well as many, many other children, but I can clearly visualize this 8-year-old Ron, is that his articulation was okay for single syllable, maybe multiple syllable words, like 2-syllable words. So he was okay with like cup, spoon, maybe spoon, I'm not sure, cat, dog, pig, eyes, ears, those 1-syllable words, car, shoe. They were clear. And then maybe some of the 2-syllable words like mama or mommy or tractor, maybe. There were some 2-syllable words that he was also clear with, but there were some words that were completely not understandable. I remember bulldozer and dinosaur. So it might sound like, she might say, what's this? And he said cup. And I could hear that. If my back was turned, I would know that that was cup if I didn't see the picture. But then when she'd hold up bulldozer, it'd be like, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, that's not clear. Da, da, da. You know, that may be a little clearer than bulldozer, but you get the idea. So, in essence, while she was working on him labeling, he was practicing errors. He was labeling, he was getting credit for correct responses, but they were completely not understandable. What I did in this classroom is I came up with my number 1, number 2, and number 3 word system. And that is outlined in my book, The Verbal Behavior Approach, in chapter 6, if you own the book. But since then, because my book is more than a decade old, and it was published in 2007. So since then, I have made my system even more clear by eliminating the number 3 words. But let's talk about the number 1, 2, and 3 system, because I think this is helpful. There's many parts of the world where there's not a speech pathologist available. You might be on a waiting list. And there needs to be a lot of collaboration between everybody on the team, especially the parents. So let me just go over my general system, and it might help you to help a student or your own child more so. So number 1 words are words that are clear to a stranger, or if a person had their back turned and was holding up pictures, they'd be able to understand what the child was saying without looking at what the picture was. So number 1 words are more likely to be 1-syllable words. I did a video blog on this. I think it's called The Number 1 Way to Get Your Child Talking. I did a video blog on that, so you may want to check that out. But number 1 words are usually 1, maybe 2 syllables in length, and they are clear. Number 2 words are missing a part. So some kids drop off the ending. So instead of saying car, they might say ka. And so it's close, but we're missing an end. Or some kids put a schwa ending, an a ending. So my son used to do this, which is in my book in chapter 6. He used to, if I'd hold up cup, at one point he was saying cuppa, cuppa. And that's because we were overemphasizing. We were saying, say cup, cup, and we were adding like a little a sound. And so the way we got rid of that, which is in my book, is to not emphasize that ending. But something in the number 2 words is missing or messed up. But generally, it's close. And then number 3 words there's a lot going on with the word. It's 3 syllables. It has R's and blends. And those sorts of words can be used to work on receptive ID, like touch the dinosaur. But we shouldn't be practicing completely unintelligible words. So number 3 words are off the charts. And that's where I simplified my version over the years, is now I just go with number 1 and number 2 words. 1 are words that are clear to a stranger or with your back turned. And number 2 words are close, but not great. And what I've learned over the years, a lot from other speech pathologists there's several, dozens, hundreds of speech pathologists that are also behavior analysts. I did a podcast episode with Rose Griffin, episode number 10, which is, she's both. She's a SLP for many years, and then she's a BCBA for several years as well. So I've learned from people like Rose Griffin, but also people like Dr. Barbera, who is just wonderful if you ever have the chance to hear her speak. But she basically says we shouldn't be focusing on words, we should be focusing on syllables. And that kids who are starting to learn to talk or talk more that have autism often have really just a lot of errors that we need more practice on the good words. And so that's why I really encourage teams, parents and professionals, to get number 1 words on a list, preferably an alphabetized list such as an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, where you can alphabetize them And so the number 1 words we know, the number 2 words we know, and we know what's missing from that word or how it sounds right this second. And then it's super important to keep kids' number 1 words really fluent. So with water, in my book, I talk about how Lucas could say water, and then all of a sudden he was saying wire, and I didn't know how to fix it. And so when he'd say wire or water, I would give him water. So if he says wire and I give him water, it reinforces the wire instead of trying to shape up that water. There's just all kinds of ways to try to keep the bar high. And one of the major ways is for everybody to know what a number 1 word is for this particular child and what a number 2 word is. And to work with a speech pathologist, if at all possible, on the number 2 words to try to get them shaped up. I recommend printing out this form, having it in the child's binder or on the front, having it on the refrigerator at home, and moving those number 2 words over as we get those mastered into the number 1 words. So I've had a lot of success with this little poor man's articulation program, if you will. It's just a really common sense way to try to improve articulation. And the most important thing is that everybody work as a team. Because language happens all the time, not just for an hour a week or a half an hour a day. We want to be making sure that everybody knows what the words are that the child can say and to work on improving those all the time. In general, in summary, parents and professionals, school teams need to be on the same page and keep the bar really high for the number 1 words and move those number 2 words over as quickly as possible. Improving articulation requires this major team effort. So I hope that this short video blog has helped you to begin thinking about how you might be able to identify number 1 and number 2 words and work together to get those words clearer. Wherever you're watching this, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and share this video with others who might benefit. And for more information and to sign up for a free online workshop, go to marybarbera.com/workshop, and I'll see you right here next week.